They say grief brings out the truth in people, but I never expected to see the monster my stepmother became after my dad died. I always knew she wasn't my biggest fan, but I never thought she'd move that fast. Within days of the funeral, she'd already changed the locks, emptied the house, and claimed that Dad left everything to her. Everything. The house, the bank accounts, the caravan, the little keepsakes he promised me when I was a child, and the way she said it? Cold. Your father wanted me to have it all. You'll understand one day. No explanation, no warmth, just a smirk. I didn't even argue. I stood there on the porch, clutching a box of old photo albums she didn't care about, while she shut the door in my face like I was some stranger. The thing is, she thought I'd just walk away. She thought I'd mourn quietly and disappear. But what she didn't know was that Dad and I had one secret, something she'd never touched, something in the attic. And maybe, just maybe, that forgotten space held the only chance I had to take back what was mine. Let me take you back. My mom died when I was 8. Dad remarried a year later. Too soon, if you ask me. Her name was Lorraine. She was one of those women who smiled like she was posing, always had something snide to say just low enough for you to question whether you'd heard it right. Growing up, I kept my distance. She didn't hit me. She didn't yell, but she made it clear I was not hers, and I never would be. Dad tried to keep the peace. He'd pat my shoulder when Lorraine snapped at me over little things. He'd sneak me ice cream when she said I didn't deserve dessert. That was Dad. Quiet, kind, always trying to smooth the rough edges. But when he got sick last year, everything changed. Lorraine stopped pretending. She controlled who visited. She filtered his phone calls. She told the nurses she was the only one who should make decisions. I flew in every weekend I could, but she always found a reason I couldn't stay long. He needs rest. You stress him out. And I believed her. God, I hate that I believed her. The will was read 2 days after the funeral. I sat in that stuffy lawyer's office with my hands clenched in my lap, hoping, praying Dad left me something. Anything. But when the lawyer opened the file, he looked confused. Everything has been left to Mrs. Lorraine Turner, he said, frowning slightly. There's no mention of a secondary beneficiary. I felt like the floor dropped out from under me. That's it? No letter, no message, nothing? Lorraine didn't even look surprised. She just dabbed her eyes with a tissue and murmured something about how hard it is to carry on. I left that day numb, not angry, just hollow. That night, I sat in my hotel room flipping through those old photo albums. Dad and me at the lake. Dad teaching me to ride a bike. Dad at my graduation, eyes shining with pride. And then I remembered something he said just a few months before he passed. If anything ever happens, check the attic. The real things, they're up there. At the time, I thought he meant old family stuff. But now, it echoed in my mind like a lifeline. Lorraine moved fast. The house was up for sale within weeks. I knew I had one shot, so I drove back early one morning, parked 2 blocks away, and slipped through the side gate. My key still worked for the back shed. From there, I climbed the old trellis, something I hadn't done since I was 13, and opened the attic window from the outside. My heart was pounding. One wrong step, and this whole plan would fall apart. Inside, the attic smelled like dust and cedar. It hadn't changed. Boxes stacked neatly, an old trunk, a few photo frames wrapped in cloth. I searched for hours, opening box after box, desperate for something, anything, until I found it. A wooden chest tucked beneath a blanket, labeled in Dad's handwriting. For her. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside the chest, everything was meticulously organized Dad's style, no doubt. There were envelopes, each one labeled with dates, and a smaller locked box tucked in the corner. The first envelope had my name on it. Just seeing his handwriting made my throat tighten. I sat cross-legged in that dusty attic and opened it with trembling fingers. It was a letter, his last one to me. He wrote, "If you're reading this, then something went wrong. I wanted to make sure you had this, in case Lorraine did what I feared she might." He went on to say he had drafted a second will, leaving me not just a portion but a fair half of everything. "I trusted the wrong people," he wrote, "and I'm sorry I didn't push harder to make it official sooner. But the documents are in this chest. Do what you need to." I sat there stunned, clutching that letter like it was oxygen. Beneath it was the revised will, signed and notarized. dated 3 months before the one Lorraine had pushed through. It left me 50% of the estate, the lake house, and all family heirlooms. There was even a clause to protect against anyone trying to manipulate him while ill. But the most important thing? It named his longtime friend and accountant, Richard Dorsey, as a witness. Richard. I hadn't heard from him since the funeral. Lorraine made sure of that. But now I had a reason to reach out. I snapped photos of everything, sealed them back carefully, and slipped out the attic window before anyone noticed. The next day I tracked Richard down. He looked older, tired, like grief had hung around his shoulders too long. When I told him about the attic and the letter, his eyes filled with tears. "I tried to fight her," he said quietly. "I told her I'd testify, but her lawyers threatened to sue me for harassment. I didn't have the strength, but I kept my copy, just in case you ever came." And he did. He had a certified copy of the second will, notarized, signed, and stored in a bank safety box. Lorraine never knew it existed. We took everything to a lawyer who specialized in contested wills and elder financial abuse. She read every document carefully, then leaned back and said, "You have a case. A strong one." It turned out Lorraine had used a shady notary to push the last-minute revision through while Dad was heavily medicated. The signature wasn't even consistent. Add to that Richard's testimony, my dad's letter, and the original notarized will from the attic. We had more than enough. I filed a formal challenge. Lorraine was served the papers while showing the house to potential buyers. She called me in a rage, screaming about betrayal, about how I was ungrateful and heartless. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. She could scream all she wanted, but this time she didn't control the story. Court was scheduled 3 months later. In the meantime, I requested a temporary hold on the sale of the house and any transfer of assets. The judge granted it. That was the first moment I felt like I could finally breathe again. But here's where it got worse for Lorraine. Honestly, part of me didn't feel sorry. During discovery, our lawyer dug up bank records. Turns out, in the last months of Dad's life, Lorraine had funneled large amounts of money into her personal account money from Dad's retirement fund. She'd been draining him behind closed doors while claiming to care for him. That wasn't just unethical. That was criminal. Elder financial abuse. Her new attorney begged to settle quietly. But I didn't want quiet. I wanted the truth on the record. The day of court, Lorraine arrived looking pale and shaky, like the facade had finally cracked. I wore one of Dad's old watches, not out of spite but as a reminder of who I was doing this for. When the judge asked why I was challenging the will, I handed over the letter. The courtroom was silent as she read it. Then came the documents, the dates, the signatures, and finally Richard's testimony. He stood there, calm and certain, and said, "I watched Tom Turner sign that will. He was clear. He wanted his daughter protected." Lorraine didn't say a word. She just stared straight ahead, her knuckles white against the arms of her chair. I don't think she expected me to fight back. I don't think she thought I'd ever find that attic chest. But she forgot one thing: my father knew her better than she realized, and he knew I would come looking. The court ruled in my favor. The second will, the real will, was reinstated. 50% of the estate was rightfully mine. The judge didn't stop there. Because of the financial records and Richard's testimony, Lorraine was found guilty of elder financial exploitation. She avoided jail time by agreeing to repay what she took and relinquish her claim to Dad's retirement fund entirely. She moved out of the house within a month, quiet for the first time in her life. No smug smile, no fake tears, just silence. And that, honestly, was more satisfying than any apology she could have given. I remember walking back into the house the day after she left. The rooms were stripped bare cold and lifeless. But there was still something comforting about the creak of the floorboards, the smell of the attic dust, the light that streamed in through the living room window just the way it did when I was a kid. I walked around slowly, hand trailing along the walls, remembering birthdays, late-night talks, my dad's laugh echoing in the hallway. I stood in the living room and said out loud, "I did it, Dad. I found it." I didn't let her win. And for the first time since he passed, I felt like I could finally let go of the anger and grief that had been knotted inside me for months. I decided not to sell the house. Not yet. I fixed it up instead. I painted the kitchen cabinets the way Dad always said he wanted to. I put our old photos back on the shelves. I even cleaned out the attic and turned it into a little reading room, keeping that chest tucked safely in the corner, locked, but always visible. It was more than just a place, it was proof. Proof that my father's love didn't die with him, that he knew, that he planned, that he trusted me to find the truth. Some days, I still think about Lorraine. Not out of hate, honestly. I think she was broken long before she ever met my dad. Some people try to take and take because they think it will fill whatever hole they have inside, but it never does. Not really. She ended up losing more than just the money. She lost her image, her standing, even her friends. When the truth came out, people stopped returning her calls. And me? I gained something I didn't expect: closure. But the biggest thing I walked away with wasn't the house or the inheritance. It was the knowledge that my dad never stopped protecting me, even in death. He saw what could happen, and he made sure I had the tools to fight back. That chest in the attic wasn't just a box of paper, it was a message. I believe in you. I trust you. And I know you'll do what's right. So now, whenever someone asks me about my stepmother and the inheritance drama, I just smile and say, she took everything except the one thing that mattered most. She forgot about the attic. And in that attic, I didn't just find legal documents. I found the truth. I found my father's love. And I found my voice. Because sometimes, the quietest places hide the loudest truths. And if you listen closely, if you dig deep enough, you might just uncover the one thing that changes everything.